Raina Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that rave line! Woohoo! Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 564. Coming to you on Monday, October 7th. We're going to look back at SC's 24-17 loss to Minnesota, make sense of it, listen to the Rant Line calls, open up the mailbag, and so much more. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at RateOfTroy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/RateOfTroy, email address rateoftroy@fanside.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227. Second Whisperer Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, journalist, my co-host, here in the Rant Line studio in Los Angeles, Alicia Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We're here at our new time, 4 p.m. Pacific.
What time did you say we were eating? At 4?
Yeah, at 4. We're podcasting at 4. And I think there's an adjustment period.
Yeah.
We're a couple minutes late for one, because it's one of those things where you're doing pod prep and then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh my God, it's 3:46. We got 14 minutes. So we weren't able to get a Jesse Cam up and going, even though I really wanted to have it going today.
Yeah, I mean, we want to have the Jesse Cam up. It also doesn't help that like an MLB playoff game literally just ended. And I was scrambling to get some Fallout set up for that and get on and, have that already. It's just a very busy time. And yeah, I would expect that we might not be always on time for this podcast, but we try.
Yeah. The good thing is, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, you're like, what are they talking about? This is usually the same time that they always upload, which is, of course, true. Which leads us to, Alicia, we got a new review on Apple Podcasts I want to get to. It's 5 stars from KFJ94. Only USC podcast you need? ? It says. Could be. No hate to Peristyle or Traveler Hates Thursdays or anybody, but no one does it like Michael and Alicia. I also like when they occasionally veer lightly into the Premier League and Formula One. They're just incredibly charming, smart, deeply invested in the team, but not in a cheesy, boring, boosterish way or a constantly, this is your word, catastrophizing? Did I get that?
Yes, catastrophizing.
Okay, we rehearsed this yesterday, and I totally butchered that word. Way hard to balance. It's a hard balance to strike, but they found it. I love them. Thank you, KFJ94. We appreciate you. This to me is the perfect review. I think it's what we're going for.
Yeah, and it kind of made my day because. Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit, it's always hard after a USC loss. Let's put it that way. It's always hard. It's always a little bit more frustrating having conversations with people, and talking about losses always is just less fun. And so, yeah, it's that made my day, honestly. I love that review. So much thanks.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And I think it's what we're striving for is be reasonable, pragmatic, passionate, all at the same time. So we appreciate it. Alicia, let's get into the rants because let me tell you, SC loses to Minnesota on the road. They fall out of the AP poll. People are not happy. So let's hear what you guys had to say.
Michael, Alicia, this is Tony from Denora, PA.
Hey, Raina Troy, this is LA Fred calling.
Hey guys, this is Michael in the 563.
Hey, Raina Troy, it's Cam from Fresco, Texas. Oh, I don't know what to say.
Hey, it's Mark from Wyoming, and guess what? The way I'm feeling right now is exactly like the Dr. Pepper commercial at Fansville. All aboard the hype train, and guess what? time to get off because it didn't last very long.
Well, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but there's lots of things to be upset and frustrated about in this game.
If you want a definition of a homer call, that play certainly qualifies. That was horrible.
Oh, the frustration level is just so high right now.
It's just like Helton all over again.
The passing game was nowhere to be found. We can't stop nobody on a rush in. Just a lousy game. We ran the ball well, but we couldn't do nothing else.
We turned the ball over 3 times. Yet again, we're dropping third down passes that would extend drives.
The penalties and the turnovers are killing us.
I'm so pissed! I cannot fathom my amount of anger I have for this offensive line. This offensive line is a joke, a complete joke. We lost this game because our offensive line cannot protect Miller Moss.
This is not a Miller Moss problem. This is a Lincoln Riley created problem. We all knew that this was a possibility, that the offensive line could possibly be a weak spot in the team, and yet he went out and got nobody, especially no tackles, in the transfer portal this season.
Josh Henson, I want you tarmacked. I want you fired right now.
And now we got to face Penn State defense next week. I think we're in big trouble.
I don't see us winning 2 or 3 more games, again, especially against Notre Dame and Penn State. Just chalk them up as losses.
Well, just kiss our season goodbye. No playoffs. We'll be lucky. We'll probably go 8-4. Probably go with a Holly Bowl from regular bowl. So let's just enjoy it. Whatever it is, fight out, beat the Lions.
Anyway, it's frustrating, but on against Penn State. Fight on. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Jeff Copenhagen. Here's my rant. This was not an upset. Minnesota is better than USC. And what is actually scary about this is that when you look at the remaining schedule, so are most of the teams that we're going to play. My only solace is that we're about to look forward to Michael's favorite holiday and the best food in the world, Thanksgiving. Fight on.
Thanks for the call, everybody. Jeff, Thanksgiving's terrible. It's terrible. We got to enjoy. Thanks for the call, Jeff. Here's the thing. Thanksgiving is terrible. And we got to enjoy fall before we get there. But the rants were incredible. Cameron from Frisco, Texas. I think he's mad. Can you tell?
I feel like that's a drop. I'm so pissed. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that deep. And the hype train analogy is really good. In terms of that, that's why the Fanville commercials are so good, by the way, is because they are so very real. And that's exactly how it goes every year. You jump on the hype train. USC gave everyone a reason to jump on the hype train after the LSU game. And then something happens and screech to a halt. So it's like clockwork. But yeah, the rants are always great. I take my role as a USC football therapist seriously. And we've had a couple therapy sessions so far this season. Had a little bit of a therapy session on Saturday. I did my rewatch on Sunday. And today, this Fallout episode, this is the Alicia tries to talk the USC fan base off the ledge episode.
Wait, hold on.
I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friends. That's me today. I'm giving you a preview.
Do I have to hit this?
I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia. You might have to hit the optimistic. Wow. I mean, I'll explain because I'm not all sunshine and roses. I don't have rose-colored glasses on looking at the rest of the season, but
you do wear transitions though.
I do wear transitions.
Unfortunately,
and oh my God, are they amazing? I love them.
Not.
No, they're wonderful.
No.
Yeah, Mr. I forgot to switch out my glasses with my sunglasses.
I mean, I leave my sunglasses
into a restaurant every other time we go to a restaurant. Oh no, I left my regular glasses in the car. I don't have that problem anymore, Michael. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but you look like a dork when it just like starts changing.
But I don't feel like a dork, so it's fine. My eyes are protected, and that's what matters. And the feelings of USC fans, I want them to be protected and softened a little bit in this episode. I have a lot to say, so much so you and I both have a lot to say, and I think we both written out our thoughts in a way that we normally don't do for Fallout episodes, but it sort of had to. There's complexity to all of this, so there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, there's always a lot to talk about when SC loses to an underdog like Minnesota, which, of course, leads us to Underdog Fantasy. Alicia, I logged into Underdog Fantasy, one of America's favorite fantasy apps, over the weekend because I saw the Bears were playing against Carolina. Carolina came in the game 1-3. Like, I feel super confident in Caleb Williams and his chances in that game against the Panthers. I looked at his stat projection. Actually, I didn't even need to look at it. I just automatically hit the higher by default. And Alicia, he threw like for 1 billion yards, which is why you need to go to Underdog Fantasy and have fun there. You can win up to 1,000 times your money by just choosing whether or not you think your favorite players will go higher or lower than their stat projections. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Signing up with promo code Reign of Troy, all one word, REIGN, OFTROY. Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Reign of Troy, to claim your new customer special for a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. And if you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Alicia, a lot of stuff to get to. Let's start with the news super quick. I think there's only like one little news point to get to. All right. The news. SC finally has a game time for the trip to Maryland. USC going up to Maryland, I guess going over to Maryland, the furthest trip of the season, all the way to the East Coast on October 19th, I believe. It's going to be a 1 p.m. Pacific kickoff on FS1. Your thoughts? Any thoughts?
It's just another early afternoon game, which I suppose is again, it's as much better than USC ending up in a 9 a.m. window.
Yeah.
But at this point, USC will have gotten quite used to playing it at that time of day. So yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Maryland, of course, has losses to Indiana and Michigan State earlier on in the season, but interesting test. They're a team that likes to throw the football, so I think it'll be an interesting sort of game because I don't think Maryland really fits the Big Ten style of play that is the stereotypical way of playing that Minnesota and Wisconsin have played in the last 2 weeks. So we'll see that. But, of course, we'll preview that game next week. Trojans get Penn State this week. But Minnesota this past week, SC loses 24-17. Let's get into it and look back at SC's loss to the Golden Gophers on the road. Alicia, you've done your rewatch. You've made a ton of notes. We have one of the longest rundowns for a Fallout episode that we've ever had. And mostly because you have 1 billion notes. So let's just get into it.
Yeah. Okay. So these are my notes, and I might sort of like add a little bit more, but I do think I've sort of gotten my thoughts down. So I'm just gonna essentially read what I've written out. This started out as like a text message to friends after I finished the rewatch, and I was like, yeah, this is just gonna sum everything up. And I've added, I want to go a little bit specific on some of this stuff. So
Sure.
The Miller Moss question. This is the conversation that's been had across Twitter. We've had Slack questions about Discord questions about it. Our chat during the Carcast, all these questions about it. So this is the Miller Moss question. After doing my rewatch, anyone who thinks Miller Moss isn't the best option for USC at quarterback isn't watching closely enough. Anyone who says he is a statue should get their eyes checked. Once again in this game, he did a great job of navigating the pass rush, reading the defense, and throwing catchable balls. For those who think he isn't mobile enough, I'd urge you to separate the idea of mobility from running stats. He's incredibly mobile, and he was in this game scrambling out of the pocket with regularity to extend plays and throwing on the run. Here's some examples. In the first drive on 3rd and 5, he rolls out, throws for a first down. On 1st and 10, again, he rolls right. As the option, as the runner is getting blown up, he rolls out, throws for 7 yards. 3rd drive, 1st and 10. There's pressure in his face immediately. He escapes the pocket, rolls out, throws to Deuce Robinson. It's blown up. I mean, it's broken up, so there's no completion, but he makes the play. Drive number 5, 1st and 10. Immediate pressure in his face, and this is against a 3-man rush. He steps up, dinks it to Woody Marks. USC gets a first down. 2nd and 6, Mason Murphy gets beat on the right. He scrambles to avoid the sack, and that helps set up USC's field goal. In the first half especially, he was moving around the pocket extremely well. He's scrambling, he's extending plays, and then he's throwing. And part of the problem here is that people equate mobility to taking off and running. But what Miller Moss does is he escapes the pocket, and instead of tucking it and running it, he's looking downfield and looking to deliver passes. And occasionally those passes don't get completed because that's the nature of the passing game. But more often they do get completed and they do convert first downs. So instead of running for 5 yards when he scrambles, he's throwing for 10, 15, 20, whatever it is, and occasionally 0 because that's the nature of throwing. I'm not saying he's a perfect quarterback, but I also think people are misunderstanding a fundamental part of what playing the quarterback position is about. And this is the calculation that people are forgetting when they talk about Jaden Mayava being a better option for this offense because of his rushing ability. You're not trading 1-for-1 QB and just adding rushing ability. What you're doing by bringing in Jaden Mayava is adding a handful of quarterback runs that would net you positive yards, but you're removing a quarterback who has done elite reading of the defense 95% of the time. Miller Moss is making plays, making throws, keeping the offense moving in a way that he does because he's reading the defense the way that he does. And I'm telling you this right now, if Jaden Mayava could read the defense and knew the offense as well as Miller Moss does, he would already be playing. I want to point out the pass play to start drive number 8, which is the intentional grounding, the intentional grounding play. I think that's the only one in this entire game where you could say Jaden Mayava probably makes something of this because of his rushing ability. Yeah, on that particular play, maybe Jaden Mayava is able to roll out and pick up some yards and help USC along the way. But you can't tell me for certain that Jaden Mayava recognizes the safety looks that are being disguised throughout this game, recognizes the coverage that is being disguised throughout this game, recognizes the blitzes that are being disguised throughout this game, recognizes the pocket and navigates the pocket the way that Miller Moss does. It is more nuanced than just Jaden Mayava is faster than Miller Moss. Moss does so well. We are all messed up on the screen, Michael. I don't know if you see this.
I don't know what's going on.
I do not know. We keep getting like booted out or something like that. But
I know. I don't get it.
The Jaden Mayava running ability will open up, a handful of running plays, and will open up some slight things on the offense. But what you lose by not having Miller Moss's eyes and brain out there is, in my opinion, very likely far greater than what you gain from having a few quarterback runs. That's the basic part of it. This is what I think Lincoln Riley clearly understands. I think this is what people who know quarterback play far better than I would tell you the same. These are things that go beyond just the ability to run faster, to run a 40-yard dash faster, or what it is. Now I'm seeing a lot of people in. Do you want to say anything on that, Michael, before I move on?
I mean, I sort of touched on this in the Carcast, but I want to speak to it a little bit more, maybe coherently. Is that I think this whole thing, which we shouldn't be giving that much credence to, even though it's a gigantic talking point on Twitter, message boards, etc. But the whole thing, not only is it obviously unfair to Miller Moss, it's so unfair to Jaden Mayava, because we're sitting here having to make the argument to debunk the whole thing.
I'm having to go look up how many sacks he took last year, which was a ton, how many interceptions he threw last year, which was a ton, and also his numbers under pressure, which were very bad last year. And I don't want to be finding holes in this kid's game when I'm really excited about this kid playing for USC in the future.
Especially when we haven't seen him start at SC. So there's you don't even know for sure that would correlate to anything, right? It's so difficult to speak on this from a Jaden Mayava perspective, because we just haven't seen enough of him in Cardinal and Gold. And so it's not fair to sit here and say, all make it sound like these are negative things about Jaden Mayava. They aren't. It's that Miller Moss is really good. And obviously you wish that Miller Moss was fast. You wish that every quarterback was fast. Duh. Like nobody wants a Ben Olsen out there. You know what I mean? But A, Miller Moss is not Ben Olsen. And B, we've said it again. Miller Moss's crime is that he's not Caleb Williams. Well, guess what? 99.9999% of quarterbacks are not Caleb Williams. There's a reason that Caleb Williams is literally the best quarterback in the history of USC football. Because nobody else is like him.
Yes. And the problem for Miller Moss here is that the thing that he is best at, I think his number one trait, his number one attribute, Caleb Williams' number one attribute, number one trait, well, he had a bunch of number ones, but his ability to improvise. You can see that with your eyes when that's happening.
Yeah.
And his giant arm, you see that when it happens. His running ability, you see that when it happens. Miller Moss, his number one attribute is his brain. His number one attribute is the way that he reads the game and understands what the defense is doing and what his offense is trying to do. And he's doing that at a very high level this year.
Yeah.
But you can't, that's not something you can point to. That's not something that you can say the average player, the average fan is sort of watching that and understanding that, and I think Yogi Roth did a very good job announcing in this game. I don't really pay attention to the broadcasters while I'm watching a game live. I just sort of tune them out. But when I do my rewatch, I pay more attention. And I thought Yogi Roth did a really good job of pointing out, that was Miller Moss recognizing that Minnesota was disguising their safety look. They were trying to trick him into thinking that they had safeties in the box, but those safeties were going to bail and go too high, which is why he ran the ball. And this, that, and the other. He's pointing out all of these things that Miller Moss is recognizing and creating opportunities for USC that are just not directly visible as you're watching a game, as a fan. Mm-hmm. And that's hurting Miller Moss, because people are thinking, Jaden Mayava can do everything that Miller Moss does and run. And I don't know that Jaden Mayava can do everything that Miller Moss does.
Yeah, but I think it's also, again, unfair to Jaden Mayava to sit here and say that, you're right. One of the most important things about Miller Moss's game is the cerebral aspect. it's also unfair to Jaden Mayaba to sit here and make it sound like he doesn't have that too. Like,
right, but it's unfair to compare a quarterback who has been learning this offense for 6 months and also is in his second year of college football,
right,
to a quarterback who is in his fifth year of college football, who has been learning this offense for 3 years. Like,
right.
you would expect Miller to be ahead, and that's what the case is, because clearly if he wasn't ahead, he would not be playing.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the second thing, which is I'll talk about a comment we got from Keep Shopping. The bigger issue is Riley forcing the pass game when the run game is being dominant. I understand this opinion because I came out of the game thinking that that's what happened, and I can tell you upon rewatch, that is not what happened. It's time to do some myth busting here, folks.
Uh-oh.
Lincoln Riley's play calling was actually very solid in this game. I thought he dialed up some beautifully timed screens that took advantage of Minnesota's pressure, that took advantage of their aggressiveness. He never truly went away from the run either. The plays that people are mad about because they were passes because of down, distance, or situation. And none of them were unreasonable calls. It's all results bias. So let's take the example of the first 2 drives of the second half, which the first drive of the second half is the best drive of the game. There was a beautiful drive earlier in the game as well, but the first drive of the second half is the perfect drive for USC. And what does the perfect drive for USC look like? The whole way through, Miller Moss has a lot of time to throw, and USC marches down the field for a touchdown. Here's how the drive goes. First down, run. Second down, completion. First down, run. Second down, completion. First down, run. Second down, completion. First down, screen. Second down, run. First down, completion. Second down, run. First down, QB sneak. More on that later. Second down, wildcat touchdown. Where in that is USC either abandoning the run or only having success on the run? Because what I just read out to you is a series of plays that were all mostly successful, where USC literally alternated run, pass, run, pass, run, pass, run, pass, until they got to first and goal. And by the way, what did we have a conversation about last week, Michael?
Going under center.
Going under center. Did guys, Lincoln Riley listened to those of you who wanted to see USC go under center. First and goal, USC goes under center. And what happens? The most pathetic QB sneak attempt I have ever seen in my life. Miller Moss, not that he did anything terrible here. It's just like the QB sneak didn't. It was not. It was like the opposite of the tush push. The line got blown backwards. Miller Moss didn't know where to go. It was all just. It was bad, and they fix it by going wildcat direct snap to Woody Marks to score on the next play. But like I did laugh that they went under center, and it was a complete non-starter. But like that drive that I'm telling you, that is the ideal USC drive. And it was fundamentally, it was the run blocking was good. The pass blocking was good. And USC kept Minnesota on their toes because they weren't just running the ball and they weren't just passing the ball. They were doing it all mixed in together. So then drive number 7, this is the next drive. This is now, again, USC only has like
9. Yeah.
Four drives in the second half. This is drive number 2. I've just described drive number 6, where the pass blocking is great. The run blocking is great. USC drives down the field, 0 problems, scores a touchdown. The next drive. This drive annoys me so much because the offense was rolling until the one play that they weren't. I think the Mason Murphy pressure that leads to the sack, that leads to the interception, in my judgment, is the only pressure of the half that USC gave up to that point. So the drive goes like this. First down, a little swing pass to Mekhi Lemon gets tipped at the line. Second down, run. First down, there's a delay of game. First down and long, they run. Because as Yogi Roth points out, Miller Moss recognizes that the safeties are disguised. and he knows that the box he's looking at is much lighter than it looks initially before the snap. So he hands the ball off on an RPO. Second down, completion to convert the first down. First down, run with a defensive penalty, moving USC a little further down the field. First down, run. Second down, run that is stuffed. So first down, 5-yard run. Second down, like half-yard run, if that, which puts USC in a 3rd down and 4, but it's 3rd and 4.5. It's closer to 3rd and 5 than 3rd and 4, if we're being realistic. On 3rd and 4-ish, USC elects to pass. Now, is it going away from the run that they elected to pass there, given what we've seen for the whole rest of the half? No, what USC was doing was never letting Minnesota know whether or not they were going to pass or run. They were letting Miller Moss's reading of the defense dictate whether or not they were running or passing, and they were having immense success doing it. Miller Moss was given time to throw in a relatively clean pocket for the entirety of the 2 drives, of the entirety of the dozen or so plays that came before this. So when USC dials up a pass on 3rd and 4, it's not an unreasonable place to pass. It's also a situation where, as Yogi Roth again does a good job of pointing out, where USC has a look that they like. They're potentially in 4-down territory. They have single coverage on the outside. And the idea is this is when you take your shot play, which people are complaining. Why isn't USC throwing the ball down the field? Why doesn't USC have explosive plays? Well, they had an opportunity here. Perfect. Set up. You can take your shot play, and if it doesn't land, you go for it on 4th down, or
you take the field goal and go.
You take the field goal and you're fine. You take your shot play and it lands, and suddenly, boom, you're in business. But what happens? Minnesota rushes 3, and one of the 3 gets by one of USC's 5 offensive linemen who are blocking, and the ball is hit out of Miller Moss's hands, and unfortunately, in a very unlucky manner, flies right under to where a defender is. You want to talk about turnover luck? Like, that's turnover luck. But it wasn't a bad idea to throw there. The offense up to that point was a balanced mix of running and passing. Why do you think the run game was so effective? Because they were passing every other down too.
Yeah, they were running into light boxes.
Yes.
Minnesota, we know, was dropping back in a lot of too high, and that opened up the running game, which is one of the reasons that Lincoln Riley's been so good with the running game, particularly at Oklahoma, is because everyone knows he throws so much. So teams are going to either drop 8 or just have too high safeties or whatever it is, and have lighter boxes. And in his history, he's usually taken advantage of that. And I also want to point out that SC was 7 of 9 on 3rd down going into that 3rd down play. So I get it if you want a run there to be the 4th straight run of the game, sure. In hindsight, a pass play failed, and so then therefore I guess the pass is bad because of outcome bias. But they were 7 of 9 on 3rd down. They were winning 3rd down plays.
Yeah, and a lot of them
with what they were doing. And so I think that there needs to be some sort of benefit of the doubts for the 3rd down strategy there.
Sometimes it's not play calling. Sometimes it is literally just execution.
Yeah.
And in this case, what I rewatched, it's literally just a case of execution. The difference between that play and any of the other plays that came before it, which was probably the longest stretch of plays that USC's had in a while where there wasn't a catastrophic failure. Yeah. And that's just what happened. But I also want to talk about the offensive line in general. People got really mad at Lincoln Riley for saying that the offensive line did a good job most of the game and took real strides forward. I rewatched the game, guys. He's right. The offensive line was not catastrophic outside of the 3 or 4 plays that they were.
I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia.
Which is 3 or 4 plays too too many, by the way, but still, compared to the 15 catastrophic plays that we've seen in the previous few games each,
Yeah.
it was a major improvement.
You know what it was? This game was the offensive line's version of the defensive performance against Michigan.
Yes.
Like SC's defense against Michigan was good.
Was fine.
But like it is completely marred by the 3 big plays because that's what dooms them.
Yes.
Right. And I think that the other thing is like the offensive line has those, the bad mistakes are very bad and they lead to very bad critical errors, which takes potentially points off the board, doesn't finish off drives that could kill off the game, all those things. And when the offensive line has not been a strength for multiple seasons, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Josh Henson's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. And so having a game where you're mostly good, but have a massive failure in there is going to end up still not being good enough. And I think that's part of the frustration too, is like they were so close to having a game where you could say, yes, they actually made strides.
Well, and like Trojan Fight says, outside of the tackles, the interior, Pregnon, Monheim, and Noah were pretty good. I agree. Alani Noah in particular was significantly improved over what we've seen from him earlier in this season.
Yeah.
And I thought the tackles and the tackles and the guards pulling on run plays were significantly more reliable throughout this game in the run game. And in the pass game, for the most part, yeah, Miller Moss is not getting a clean pocket for like 5 seconds, but we're also grading on a curve here a little bit. So he had more time to throw than I thought he did. And when he had time to throw, by the way, it was almost always completions because, again, he's a good quarterback. Part of the reason why the line wasn't as catastrophic as I thought is because Miller Moss is again, very good. He gets the ball out fast, so neutralizes any chance of the pass rush getting to him anyways. And he does a good job of scrambling when he needs to, and he has a good feel for the pocket. There were a couple plays where, maybe he held the ball a tiny bit too long, but that's going to happen. The line did a hell of a job run blocking. It allowed USC's offense to flow beautifully between the run and the pass. The 2 touchdown drives are great examples of that. The non-touchdown drives were largely no different. They just included a critical error. The problem is that this team is mistake prone. And once you have one mistake, it can snowball into other mistakes. So in the first half, the Zachariah Branch drop kills what I think would likely have been a touchdown drive based on USC's success for most of the rest of the game. The Quentin Joyner fumble is devastating because, again, that drive, USC was driving and having success play in and play out, moving down the field. In the second half, they have a mistake-free drive to score a touchdown, and they're well on their way to another touchdown to more or less put the game away when Mason Murphy lets his man through, and there's the really unlucky interception in the end.
Yeah.
And then USC comes back, and one of the complaints that I had is, well, why did USC leave Mason Murphy on an island? Why weren't they giving him help? Because he was getting eaten alive. Well, after that play where Mason Murphy gets eaten alive and USC has an interception because of it.
The tipped interception, yeah.
USC comes back.
Next drive.
The very next play, what do? They have Woody Marks go out and chip and help Mason Murphy. And what happens? Elijah Page gets blown through like he's not there. And Miller Moss has to scramble away and ultimately gets hit with intentional grounding, which is a negative play that sets USC back. And you'll notice that the plays that the drives that USC doesn't score touchdowns on almost always start with a negative play. Can't have that. Now, you and I had talked about this, like if you wanted to question Lincoln Riley's play calling, that play is probably one that you can question. Why aren't you running the ball there?
Sure.
But at the same time, there's a mind game going on. If I'm Minnesota, I think the quarterback just threw an interception. The offensive line just gave big pressure. USC's probably going to want to run the ball here. And if I'm Lincoln Riley, I think to myself, well, Minnesota thinks we're probably going to want to run the ball here. But we need to show we have confidence in our team and go ahead and throw the ball here. And it backfires. And yeah, again, that's
also the 2 drives before, when you were going through a lot of play-by-plays, there was a lot of first down passes.
Yes.
So like that's kind of what the MO was, to throw on first down. This is an offense that needs to throw to open up the pass, because again, it's about running into light boxes. Like, football is a game of numbers, hat on a hat. You want to run where the defense is. You want to attack where the defense is vulnerable, right? And so this was the MO, was a lot of throwing on first down. And yeah, I think you can say that play, the intentional grounding play, they could have run. Sure. I guess. Yeah. But they don't. It ends up in the intentional grounding, which puts them far behind the sticks. You have a 2nd and very long following that. You're not going to run the football on 2nd and very long. Following that, 2nd and very long, they get a good gain, which sets up a 3rd and short. And then again, you go back to the same situation from the drive previously. It's 3rd and 4? 3rd and
it's I have it written down here. They get the 15 yards back, and then it's 3rd and 4.
Yeah, 3rd and 4. Like, throwing on 3rd and 4 is not a crime. Like,
especially when, by the way, they've got single coverage again on Jacoby Lane, and we've seen that, throwing the ball up for Jacoby Lane to go catch it is not a bad strategy. It just didn't work this time.
Yeah, but the problem for SC here is that there can't just be a million this times. And all of those, well, it didn't work on this time. It didn't work in this instance. The drive fails because of this one moment. The continuation of that is ultimately sort of what dooms SC's ability to win games, right? Because I know you got more points to make. I think I don't want to cut you off here.
Run through very quickly, because I know you have some really good points.
Yeah, you go first, and then I'll continue what I was saying.
Okay, so basically, USC is a mistake-prone game, and I know people in the chat are tired of like 1 or 2 plays away and stuff, but like, it's also true. And I think Lincoln Riley has to own the fact that we're still saying that, and Lincoln Riley has to own the fact that he's got 2 losses this year, and
that it's still true is the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. And the number of losses USC has had over the last 2 seasons is the problem.
Yeah.
But they are like, I think that people are overestimating like how bad this, or overstating how bad this team is, or mediocre this team is, or whatever, because this team is perfectly capable of being undefeated. This team is perfectly capable of winning these games. They lose in their concentration, and you know what? And I get it. The thing that I am frustrated most about College Football 25 is that you can't lose your concentration for even a snap, because that's when you throw the interception, or that's when you have issues. It's frustrating, but give Minnesota some credit. USC let them back in the game with that turnover, and they shouldn't have shot themselves in the foot like that. But Rosemer was really good at the end of this game. He made a couple really, really good throws to beat USC's defense. And their running backs, Darius Taylor and the other one whose name I'm forgetting, they run so patient. It is painful to watch them be so patient and let runs develop. And you feel like USC's defense has the run developed, and then they just wait, and boom, they're gone. This gets into one of my issues with the defense, which is they give up too many chunk plays, and it causes USC to lose the field position battle even when they do get stops. But also, we're just not seeing enough impact plays from USC's defensive front. If USC's defensive front had players who are more capable of making impact plays, that patient running wouldn't be possible, because somebody would be making a move to get by their blocker and hitting a guy. And they wouldn't be able to Max Brosmer wouldn't be able to make the throws that he makes if USC's defensive line was getting the kind of pressure that they should be. We are nearly halfway through the season and still no starting defensive lineman for USC has a sack. I can live with the defensive tackles not having sacks, but the defensive ends need to start getting home.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a tactical thing. This is not a discipline thing, because UCLA's defensive ends had a ton of sacks. And I'm not asking them to be Leatu Latu, but I'm asking them to be something a little bit closer to it than they currently are.
Yeah, there was one hurry in the game. And
the best pass rushing move we saw all game was from Devin Tompkins, a backup defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be the case when you have talent like Anthony Lucas on the field. Last two things. Woody Marks is so damn good. He's incredible, immense. Just what a player. I love it. Love Woody Marks. And finally, Cade Eldridge is a dog. Appreciate that man for the stellar job that he is doing in for Lake McCree, because boy, is he doing an immense job blocking for USC. He's not catching as many balls as Lake McCree would, so maybe he's not getting the kind of the kind of recognition he should, but he is a key cog when the run game is working for USC, and I cannot be more effusive in my praise of Zach Henson
mm-hmm.
for the job he has done.
Hanson.
Hanson, not Henson, Hanson, the tight end coach, for the job he has done coaching up USC's tight ends, because I would wager that is the best coached unit on the team right now.
Yeah, they look really good. Zach Hanson has a history of being an offensive line coach. So
which
I
put the tight ends in at tackle. At this point, fevered mind. At this point, I'm not opposed.
I am someone who doesn't expect a lot to gain from making an in-season firing per se. But this is one of those rare instances where I think if the offensive line continues to have the catastrophic issues, if they go into the Penn State game and Moss gets sacked 9 times and there's a million tackles for loss and it looks as bad, if not worse, than the Michigan game, I think it's seriously worth considering moving Hanson to the offensive line because he's got the experience as an offensive line coach. It's not a traditional sense of like you get rid of, if you make a coaching change, there usually is not somebody on the coaching staff who literally can plug in, because you don't have the ability to go make a midseason hiring. This isn't pro sports. But there weirdly is that aspect here. Let's get into my little spiel, and I'll sort of go quick through these since you were able to so eloquently put a lot of stuff down. I think we talked in the Carcasts, and we talked about this more than once. One of my biggest frustrations is the narrative that SC isn't ready for Big Ten football because physicality, because bad offensive line play, or whatever it is. And of course, I said this in the Carcast before, and I've said this before. The reason I don't like that thing is because SC has played physical teams all the time. They've always played Notre Dame. They've always played, Utah in the last decade. Stanford was the prototype and the inventor of the body blow theory. When Bruce Feldman created the body blow theory idea, it stemmed from playing Stanford. Washington has always been physical on the defensive line, right? It's not like there's a lack of physicality in the Pac-12. I think there's a lot of, what do you? I think there's a lot of self-doubt when it comes to the Pac-12, because the national perspective was bad at the Pac-12. The Larry Scott stuff was bad. SC was not happy in the Pac-12, and so the Pac-12 didn't have a national champion, and I think that has conflated this thought that everything in the Pac-12 was just not good. And that's misguided, because there is an issue with the Big 12 or the Big 10 that SC is not ready for. And it's not physicality, because they already struggled with that and they've already faced that. It's the pace of play. The pace of play in the Big 12, in the Big 10 is so drastically different from what SC has played before. And I don't know that SC, as it stands right now, because they are a mistake-prone team, is suited for that at all. And it's because, as we saw against Minnesota tried to take the air out of the ball, fewer possessions, there were only 9. And when this is a USC team that commits critical error after critical error after critical error, and functions in, to make a hockey reference, is the Kings are good in 5-on-5. They're very good in Corsi and possession numbers, the fancy stats. If you're a soccer fan, SC's XG is good. There are a lot of possession, a lot of good XG, all those, SC is very good in the run of play. But the problem is, what are you doing with all of that goodness? And it's that it's not panning out to anything consistently because of the critical errors that they continue to make. And in a game and in a conference that has so few possessions and so many teams like Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and Rutgers that want to take the air out of the ball and slow things down, that makes every single play that much more important. Longer drives mean more plays, fewer possessions, heighten the variable risk and impact of those individual plays, and it all greatly magnifies every individual mistake. So when you're a team that drops a third down, and when you're a team that has a tip ball be an interception, and when you're a team that fumbles on in the red zone, and when you're a team that muffs a punt, and all these mistakes that we've seen in the last 2 weeks, if you do those things in a game in which there's not a lot of possessions, that is a death sentence for your chances of being a consistent winner in this league. The good side of it is that SC there's a good football team in there. The Trojans on offense, 13th in FEI offense, 14th in 4-yard gain rate, 13th in the country in third down conversions. All of those are very good, especially in a Big Ten that is not offensive centric. That's all, 98 percentile stuff. And they've done it while playing the 12th hardest schedule in FBS in terms of relative strength of opponent defenses faced. They're not facing Sonny Dykes' Cal. You know what I mean? They've had a lot of success moving the ball against very good defenses. The SC is 5th in Big Ten play. They are 5th in yards per carry at 5.0 yards per carry. Obviously, it's a small sample size. We've only been a third of the way through the conference season. This doesn't really translate to this, but that 5.0 would literally lead the Big Ten in Big Ten play a year ago. So just for comparison's sake there, right? Yet despite all that goodness, the critical errors wreck all the productive stuff, because despite all that, they're 50th nationally in offensive points per drive, 94th in successful drive rate in a drive that reaches the opposing 40-yard line. 94th. How are you 13th in FEI offense and 94th in successful drive rate that reaches the opposing 40? It's the critical errors. It's the turnovers. It's the drop third down. It's the fumbles. All these little things completely doom all of the success that SC is getting. And it gets further magnified when 28.8% of SC's drives are starting at least 80 yards from the end zone. So at their own 20 or inside, like worse than that. 28.8. That's more than a quarter of their drives are starting having to gain that many yards. And again, these are possessions. These are games in which there's not very many possessions. So you have to drive longer because you don't have good field position and the special teams has not been successful. And this is a game in which you're not going to have a good number of total opportunities to have the football, which means that every single mistake is blown up because you can't overcome it. If this was the Pac-12 and this was a game that had, 14, 15 total possessions, this is a game that SC probably wins because the sheer number of times that they have possessions, they're probably going to get through and score more points than 17 points. And I know that a lot of the problem is like, oh, they only scored 17 points. Yeah, they only scored 17 points because it's a game in which there's not many opportunities. I mean, there's not a lot of opportunities.
And you turn the ball over.
And you turn over the ball. Like, your chance to score more points is limited. They only had 3 drives in that fourth quarter before the last one in the last minute of the game. Sorry, 3 drives in the second half.
Yeah.
4 total if you include the desperation
And
drive.
the vast majority of the plays in the second half for USC were very good to perfectly capable of putting up far more than 17 points.
Yeah.
In that half alone.
Yeah.
But they make the critical error.
They make the critical error. And I think that when you look at Minnesota's game plan in this, from PJ Flack, defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman, I think it was the blueprint in how you beat SC, which is you play 2 high safeties, you drop back, and I know that this has been the thing against Lincoln Riley for a long time. You drop 8. You make SC be slow and methodical rather than, gaining chunk plays. And to SC's credit, I think that there's a lot of talk that SC under Lincoln Riley in general can't break down a defense for a soccer terminology that's dropping into the low block, right? They can't break down a defense that is dropping 8. I think that the Minnesota game is not an example of that because SC's issues were not with moving the ball. They moved the ball plenty. They were able to, they took what the defense was giving them, which was everything underneath, and they still had success. But Minnesota's entire game plan ends up being successful because making SC be so slow and methodical and have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and do the perfect thing on every single drive, which they were doing for the most part until the critical error, it all means nothing when you have that critical error. You have the interception, you have the fumble, you have a drop on 3rd down. Minnesota said, okay, you want to win this game? Be clean. And SC was not able to be clean. So Lincoln Riley can beat a team that drops 8. SC can move the ball against that. SC can run the ball against a Big Ten defense, especially if they're going to drop 8. They can do all of those things. But they're not going to win a lot of football games if they don't clean up the mistakes. So, yeah, we're short on time, so we're going to run through over under pretty quickly here. But let's get to it.
So you're going over.
I'm feeling bold. Give me that over.
I'll go under. I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take.
I'm going to do an under here.
All right, Alicia, let's get into over under. We'll pull it up here on the screen on the old YouTube. That's, of course, now it's not showing. I swear it's there. Where is it? There it goes. All right, over under. I'll run through this pretty quick. First over on going into the week, you had a 2-game lead, 13-11. My record 11-13. First over under, you said over under 0.5 Miller Moss interceptions. I took the over, locked you into the under. It was over. He threw 2. I don't know that these are the most egregious interceptions. One of them obviously picked. The other one, he throws into triple coverage on a desperation drive, last play of the game. Yeah, not a great throw, but there could be worse things, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's over. It's over because there were 2. And he's thrown 4 in 3 Big Ten games, and turnovers kill you. and kill your ability to win a game. Next one, you said, or I said, over under 5.5 Jacoby Lane catches. Alicia, you took the over, locks me into the under, and I bet you were feeling so good. We got a text or a tweet early on that was like, "Oh, I screwed up. I should have taken the Jacoby Lane over because he caught the 2 of the first 3 plays of the game. Didn't have a catch after that. It was the under."
Yeah, USC didn't get him involved enough, but also Minnesota did a really good job of taking him away.
Yeah. Next one, you said over under 1.5 sacks for USC's defensive line starters. I stupidly took the over. It was under. The only sack was by Devin Tompkins, who did not start the game on the defensive line.
It's not stupidly taking the over. This is a massive area of underachievement for USC.
Yeah. All right, next one. I said over under 9.5 Minnesota second quarter points because the Trojans kept allowing 14 points in the second quarter, and Minnesota had a knack for scoring 14. So we put the line at 9.5. Alicia, you took the under. This ends up being under by 5 seconds. Minnesota scored a field goal with 5 seconds remaining in the first quarter. And then they scored a touchdown in the second quarter, which would have gave them 10 points, but 3 of those 10 points came in the first quarter by 5 seconds. So it was under. It was under. They only had 7 second quarter points. Let's go to your last one, over under 39.5 second half Minnesota rushing yards. We didn't fix the screen again, but I did take the over on this. You took the under, gets locked into the under. It was over. Minnesota in the second half had 75 rushing yards in the second half. They were very good on the ground. Very good on the ground.
Too many chunk plays on the ground for them. Allowed.
Yeah. And the last one, I said over under Quentin Joyner runs 6.5. I set the line at, you took the over. I got locked in the under. It was under. It was 4, and they were all good. 9, 6, 8, 21 yards. But he fumbles on that 21-yard gain, which kills off SC's drive in the second quarter and killed off his chances to be a factor because he was essentially benched after that.
He was well on his way to the over here, and then he literally fumbled it away.
Yeah. Weekly scoreboard, I did good. I went 4-2. You went 2-4. Season standings were both locked up, 15 up. Let's get to the weekly leaders. We had 2 people go 6-0. Steven, Chad, and Matt and Rancho. Good job to you guys. Season leaders, it's Pickle back on top, 25-5. Jensen SC 11 at 24-6. And Scotty C coming in third at 21-9. Whole lot of carnage everywhere else. So 21-9 being the third ranked is crazy, but that's where we are. Good for Scotty C for being able to weather that. So that's over under. Let's get to the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, let's get to the mailbag. We got to start with a couple of calls. We'll go here. Both of these calls are about the same play, so I will play these calls back to back. That sound good? Start with Darren.
Hey guys, this is Darren from Reno. Hey, I don't ever want to call out one player because I know they play hard and they're doing their best, but I feel like Mason Murphy lost that game for USC. I know that they made a lot of mistakes. There were penalties. They didn't play well, but it just seemed like, man, he was getting beat every single time Miller Moss dropped back the pass. The tackles got destroyed tonight. Anyway, fight on, and hopefully we can get a win next week against Penn State. See ya.
And then Aaron had to say this.
Michael and Alicia, this is Aaron from Boston, and I have a question for you about something that I'm sure you're going to be talking about plenty on the show, which is that second to last interception by Miller Moss. My question for you is, what do you think happened pre-snap on that play? I've watched that play probably 5 or 6 times, and I can't sort out what the game plan was there with the lineman. If you look at Mason Murphy, he's looking at the inside lineman as though he and Alani Noah are planning to double team that guy or something. And there's just nobody looking at Joyner on the edge. And then the guy on the inside that Alani Noah and Mason Murphy are both focused on just drops back. And you have 2 offensive linemen both just collapsing. And I mean, do you think there was just a miscommunication pre-snap there? Or am I overthinking it? And was that just Mason Murphy getting beat like crazy? Curious to hear your take. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, guys. Yeah, Alicia talked about this plenty. The Jaw Joyner play where they gets back there and sort of wreaks havoc. Your thoughts?
I think it's all of the above. I think that one of the big problems with this offensive line is they aren't very good at recognizing creative rushes. They aren't good at recognizing delayed blitzes, and they do get tricked when teams drop back a guy that they think is going to be pass rushing, and then that sort of messes up the plan for what the five are going to do. Having said that, Mason Murphy should still be able to hold off any defensive tackle he faces for longer than he did on that play.
Yeah.
One-on-one.
You don't got to be perfect. You just got to be able to weather the storm more than he's been, right? And SC's got to get better. There are the tackles. Discord question we got from SJ in Santa Barbara. No one is questioning Miller Moss's toughness or ability to make throws when given time, but at what point do you allow Mayava a chance to run the offense if he continues to struggle? Maybe Mayava's skill set is better suited for an offense with a less stellar offensive line.
I think I've said my piece on this, but I will simply reiterate. Miller Moss is not the reason that this offense is struggling to score points. Miller Moss is the reason that USC is in position to score as many points as it is, but keeps having critical errors that stop that. I don't think this is as simple as Jaden Mayava can run this offense better because he can run. I don't think Jaden Mayava can run this offense better because I don't think there's any chance Jaden Mayava can read defenses or know this offense as well as Miller Moss does right now.
If it becomes evident that Jaden Mayava is the better pick, Lincoln Riley's going to make that decision.
Yes.
He benched Spencer Rattler for Caleb Williams.
A well-established starter who was a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Spencer Rattler won his last 13 games as a starter.
Who hadn't lost and who was not playing so poorly that you would have expected him to get benched.
Right.
Again, if Mayava is ready, he will be in the game.
We got a couple of super chats. We should have got to these earlier. Big ups to Sports Geek 91. Too many fans expected the defensive hires to be miracle workers. The talent and depth isn't there up front. Yeah,
definitely.
The defense is a lot better than last year, significantly better. But they're still not elite. And if the offense was as good as they were last year or the year before, it wouldn't matter. Yeah. But when the offense is having its troubles too, you need to be even better on defense, which is sort of unfair to them given the progress that they've had. But yeah, I agree. West Texas Mike says, didn't realize I showed up to open mic night in the chat today. A lot of stuff going on, I guess.
It's always open mic night in the chat.
Yeah. Big ups to West Texas Mike. One of my favorite people in the chat, for sure. Also, big shout out to Graham, who said last week or in the Carcast that we needed a new drop, so we got it. I have a beef with SC. There we go. It's good, right? I think multi-use. We can get it in there. Discord message from Tim in LA. At this point last year, SC was 5-0, coming off of what SC called what Michael called, quote, a peak Pac-12 or Pac-10 road opener at ASU and a win at Colorado, described perfectly by the cliche. Colorado didn't lose, they just ran out of time. How does the 2024 USC team compare to 2023 through the first 5 games? At this point in 2023, we saw reasons to worry, and they were justified. Next up was the triple overtime game against Arizona and what became the second to last win of the season. At this point in 2024, which do you see more of? Reasons to worry or reasons to be optimistic?
I see, compared to last year, I see more reasons to be optimistic. I do tend towards optimism, so take that for what it is.
Sure.
But I think that what we were seeing last year, I mean, the defense was just considerably worse, straight up, than this defense is. And yes, this defense has areas where I think that they are dropping the ball, but like they are so improved over last year. It almost doesn't seem fair to nitpick those. But we also have to be realistic about like being honest about the defense and where they aren't, pulling their share of the load. At the same time, on the offense, I mean, last year, this time, well, maybe a little bit later because USC played an easier schedule in September.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, the whole talk was about how the offense was, there was something wrong with the offense and how it wasn't flowing and how the offensive line was terrible and how Caleb Williams was running for his life and, you know, all of those things. So again, I don't think that I certainly don't think last year was better than this year to this point.
No.
I just think, yeah, there's too many of the same issues. Certainly, the offensive line should not still be an issue here, but it is, and that's the reason for worry. Is the offensive line is what it is, but I also think that what we're seeing across the board from this team, and what I know of Penn State and Notre Dame, for instance, we're going to talk about this. We could talk about this a little bit later, but the schedule is not of a sort of degree that USC couldn't go on a run here if they put some things together. Now, I'm not going to bet on them putting things together because they simply make too many mistakes for me to bet on them.
Yes.
But they could do it. There's no reason that they couldn't if they just got their heads on straight.
Yeah, I think this team is better than last year. I think the hard part is when you look at last year, they were 5-0. 6-0 in the first half, and then 1-5 in the second half. And you look at this team; they're 3-2 in the first half, and we're saying that they're better. I think they are better, especially because of the defense. The defense keeps them in every game. The problem is they might be better, but not have a better record at the end of the season. The other flip side of that is when you look at the second half, or the last 7 games of last season, SC went 2-5, but 1-5 in the last 6, right? The rest of the season, the way it goes, there's a chance that happens to SC too, that they do it again, that they end up, going 6-6, something like that. It's absolutely possible. At the same time, I think SC's defense being improved will give them so many more chances to overcome the offensive issues that arise, that even when SC has a game in which they do commit mistakes, we might end up seeing games like the Wisconsin game where they put together a half where they don't make the mistakes. And then, if SC doesn't make any mistakes, they're going to, the second half of the Wisconsin game that's what SC is when they don't make mistakes. But the first half of the Wisconsin game and most of the Minnesota game that's what SC is more often than not, because they do make mistakes. So if they don't make mistakes, yeah, they can string together wins. But if they don't make mistakes, then they're going to continue to be a team that loses games that they shouldn't, wins games sometimes decisively and sometimes not, and they're going to be inconsistent because of those mistakes. Long email from Kai. Howdy, y'all. I've been listening to your podcast on Spotify since 2020. I've written a few times. Love every episode, and it helps me get hyped for the season and catch up on the games when I can't watch them live. I wanted to write in today because I had an epiphany while watching the Vandy-Alabama game. Initially, I was watching South Carolina at Ole Miss before seeing Vandy up 13 points and switching channels. I was extremely excited to watch a game of two teams that I personally don't have a lot of care for outside of my saltiness towards Bama, which was my first game as a USC fan in 2016. Little context, I didn't care about NCAA football until joining the SC band. However, due to the nature of Pac-12 football at the time, felt like my focus on football was strictly within the Pac-12. I didn't care as much what was happening in the divisions, nor did I feel like it mattered to us. It was all about which one of us is going to force the Pac-12 to eat itself again and deny any opportunity to have a word in the larger FBS conversation. Rivalries within conference held more weight because it felt like we weren't going to have the chance to get meaningful matchups outside of our conference. We were stuck in a circle of suck, shout out to the Pac-12 band page, but it personally blinded me from everything else in FBS. However, now that we're in the Big Ten, I find myself more and more paying attention to an ecosystem that is FBS football. I think it says a lot that I was excited to watch a game that I didn't have any ties to, because I now care more about what it says to about the bigger picture across conferences than my own. And maybe it's because SC is looking really good this year, If you don't think so, take a deep breath and enjoy the game. Mind you, this email came before the Minnesota game. But I personally think it's because of the transition to the Big Ten. For me, college football as a whole is more exciting than it's ever been. I know Alicia and RoT's job is to care about FBS across the board, but I was curious if other RotBots had similar sentiment. Either way, I love listening to y'all and hope we have a great season. P.S. Michael brought up TMB's the band's sacred number that is 3469 a few episodes ago. Fun fact: Tom Grossi over at the Carcasts was given a donation of $3,469.69, and it was the biggest donation on the stream for over 475 days. I'll be damned if that wasn't an SC band alum. FTFO Kai from Los Angeles.
That was a great email. Yeah, I love that little PS.
You gotta do the hand thing. 3, 4, 3, 4, 6, 9. Beat the Lions. Hey.
I think that the transition of the Big Ten is certainly interesting. It's presenting new challenges, but it's also creating sort of new excitement to be involved in. And I am paying more attention to what Indiana is doing this year. I wish more people would be a little bit like Kai and just sort of take a deep breath and just watch football and try to have fun.
Yeah, I think that when people are diehard fans of things, and we are all diehard fans of something, right? You can get tunnel vision and focus on the minute issues or whatever it is, and the Miller Moss conversation. You can watch SC football and say, well, Miller Moss is the problem because you're throwing interceptions, and then you watch other games and you're like, they probably wish they had a Miller Moss. So yeah, I think there's context to be gained by watching other games, and as much as I miss the Pac-12 because of the comfort level of that's what USC football is playing Pac-10 and Pac-12 teams. It is cool having something new. SC going on the road, playing these teams that you'd only see in bowl games, talking about new teams every week. We're talking about teams that you're not facing the same guys over and over again. There's no Cam Rising here who SC has faced 3 times. You know what I mean? Like everybody's a new face. And that's sort of a new endeavor and makes you have to sort of understand the national scope a little bit for sure. But it's also a new challenge that SC's gotta overcome. All right. Let's get to a super chat we got in the chats, which comes from 300 GJW. It's the inability to recruit big athletic bodies on both sides of the ball. That's a combination of the reasons why. But I don't think that Coach Lincoln Riley is great at head coach. Just my opinion. Your thoughts?
I mean, people are entitled to their opinion. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have questions about Lincoln Riley at this stage. As I said on the Carcast, he is behind schedule now at USC.
Yeah.
The same mistakes can't be happening like this. That things need to get fixed in order for people to truly believe that this team can rise up into contention. At the same time, I say this, I feel like every week I watch a lot of college football. You would be shocked at the level of coaching. I watch a lot of NFL too. You would be shocked at the level of coaching, and not in a good way. So I don't know.
Coaching's hard. Refereeing's hard.
Everything is way more complex than we like to admit. And I still go back to, all right, if you don't think Lincoln Riley's a good enough head coach for USC, you can have that opinion. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If USC lost Lincoln Riley or got rid of Lincoln Riley and had to go on a coaching search, I think there's a less than 50% chance that there's a greater than 50% chance that USC ends up with a coach that is considerably worse than Lincoln Riley. There are far more Clay Heltons out there than there are Lincoln Rileys. I'll tell you that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Lincoln Riley you would hope that year 3 was significantly better than it is now. I don't know that Lincoln Riley is a bad coach. I just don't, but it's evident that SC is not getting the same success out of the last 20 games, like 11-9 in the last 20 games or whatever it is. He's not getting the same success that he was getting before. And that's what you wanted when he got to SC. And I think there's some reasons for that can be explained away. And there's other reasons that can't. SC's having a lot of success, but not finishing off drives. And you can look at it and say, yeah, they're having success because of Lincoln Riley, but they're also having these big mistakes. And until you clean up the big mistakes, the ultimate person who is to have the most say on that is Lincoln Riley. Is it his fault that Quentin Joyner fumbled? No. But everything runs back to the head coach anyways. That's the game. That's how football is. All right, couple more questions here. Roger Dodger says, so nothing went wrong. Certainly there was a major failure. I'll wait for it. I think this is talking about the offense. The major failure was all the mistakes.
I mean, again, if we boil this season down to anything, it's just you're simply not going to win games when you are averaging 3 turnovers lost. The last 3 games, USC has had 2, 3, and 3 turnovers. Now, again, you and I are not necessarily holding that last interception too harshly against Miller Moss. Obviously, you don't want him to throw it, but that interception gets thrown more often than not. But the turnover margin is where you're losing games. It's simply the turnover margin. And we've seen a USC team in the past who had a huge turnover luck, and they won a lot of games because of it. And we've seen teams in the past like Notre Dame in circa 2016, whatever year that was, when they went 4-8, in large part because their turnover luck was terrible. And the next year they rebounded because things turn around. So I don't know.
We have to run. We're late and we're over time, and you've got to go do stuff. So I'm going to keep this through a 3-second explanation. Turnover luck is not like luck about whether or not you turn the ball over in a general sense.
Yeah.
Turnover luck is an idea from Bill Connolly that on average teams recover half of their fumbles, and balls that are tipped are intercepted half of the time. And so when balls that are the losing fumbles and losing tip balls to interceptions, if that happens more often than 50%, then you are unlucky. That's where the luck is. It's not talking about SC's not unlucky because Miller Moss threw an interception on the last drive of the game. That's obviously not it. It's not about fumbling, it's about recovering the fumble.
But also
bounces of the ball that you can't control.
For instance, the things you can't control. For instance, like the throw of the ball over the middle into triple coverage.
That's not luck.
That's not luck, but
yeah,
that throw gets made all the time across a college football Saturday, and sometime the DB drops it. That's turnover luck.
Right.
The things you can't control. And it's like bad calls. I always say, referees aren't biased, they're just incompetent. And the one good thing we can say about that is that for the most part, most teams, for every bad call that goes against them, another bad call is going to go for them. That's the way turnover luck works as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Last question, Cameron from Frisco, Texas says, what are your thoughts on Big Brother? Who do you think is going to win? I'm so far behind. I think this is your question, Alicia.
I think Chelsea wins in a landslide.
Oh my God, I'm cutting that, adding it to the board. I love it.
Screw you. I'm sorry that there's no house guest named Liverpool. Bullshit. Chelsea is going to run away with this unless some people, and since Michael has not caught up, I won't necessarily name specific people, but unless certain people realize that there is no chance they win against Chelsea and don't take her to the final 2, which would be a shame because Chelsea deserves to win at this point. But, you got to get to the final 2.
Chelsea, CFC. All right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll be back Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. On the East Coast, 8 in the Maritimes, probably midnight somewhere in Europe. So we'll be back then. Until then, we will see ya.
See ya.
See ya.